After the Arabidopsis Thaliana, we are going to see the topic that is the transition from vegetative to reproductive stage. So, in the vegetative phase, plant grow only vegetatively, but the transition from vegetative to reproductive stage, it involves many endogenous as well as exogenous factors are involved. So, temperature, light quantity, how much light quantity is there, right? Photo period, whether there is a long day, short day or day neutral. Then vernalization, that is a cold treatment, and the light quality, that is the blue light, whether that is the blue light or the red light or the far red light, that is also important for the transition from vegetative to reproductive stage. So, photoperiodism, pigments, these are the endogenous factors, right? So, drought stress, hormonal balance, these are responsible for the transition, right? So, in case of the vernalization or the temperature, so the precursor is induced by the chilling treatment or the vernalization, which induce this florigine chemical, which chemical formula or the composition is still unknown, that induce the flowering. So, in that case, the change in the day length, or that is the photoperiod mechanism, which is present in the leaves, which induce this florigine hormone, which induce the flowering earlier, right? There is a flower buds, then that open, that is the flowering happens, right? So, this florigine is a systematic signal that promotes the flowering, so which is present in the leaves of the plant. So, in the flower induction pathway, there are 4 flower induction pathways. That is, first is a light independent, second is a temperature dependent, light dependent, temperature dependent, gibberellin independent, and the autonomous pathway, right? So, autonomous pathway has a different genes for the flower induction pathway, like FCA, FLC, SOCI, which induce the floral in meristem. Actually, what happens in the flower induction or the from transition from vegetative to reproductive phase, what happens actually, the apical meristem, which is present in the vegetative stage, that stops producing leaves, instead that start producing the floral meristem, and that signals has been given by that florigine chemical, right? But in the autonomous pathway, so many genes are involved which starts producing the floral meristem, right? And in the other case, that is like long day plant, many photoreceptors, or we can say the circadian clock, that also induce the earlier flowering, or vernalization also induce the earlier flowering, that is the temperature dependent, right? Then the gibberellic acid dependent pathway is also there, which switch from vegetative to reproductive development. So, in case of the photoreceptor, there is a constant gene which induce the FT and the SOC1 gene, and in case of the vernalization, there are those two genes, that is the VRN1 and VRN2, which inhibit the FLC, actually, which inhibit the SOCI, right? So, many genes are involved in the flower induction pathway. So, already we have seen the transition from vegetative to reproductive stage, and which genes are involved actually in the flower induction pathway. But in the transition, it's very important to know that in the vegetative phase, only leaves and branches are produced. But when they transit, or when they shift from vegetative to reproductive, instead that apical meristem starts producing the flowering, and in that case florigine plays very important role. So, as I said that the transition from vegetative to reproductive phase, it is depend on the many endogenous as well as exogenous factors. But it's very important to notice here that the temperature range from for each and every species is different, right? Light quality may be different for each and every species. So it depends. Light temperature and photoperiod and vernalization or light quality is maybe change, or need of that factors may change depend on the plant species. So temperature, what temperature does? Temperature induce the earlier flowering, or the low temperature may delay the flowering. Light quantity also plays the similar way. Light quantity actually, high light quantity, it has been reported that the high light quantity in the Arabidopsis thaliana, it plays very important role. It induces the earlier flowering, and it the life cycle is about 2 weeks in that case, right? Photoperiod, in Arabidopsis thaliana, actually photoperiod is Arabidopsis thaliana is a long day plant. So in case of the Arabidopsis, vernalization is also important, that is the low temperature treatment, but that low temperature treatment has to be given to the seeds before they germinate. And light quality, in which we can see the cytochrome as well as the phytochromes. They both are the photoreceptors, right? That cytochrome involves the blue light photoreceptor, and phytochrome red light and far red light, that absorbs the red light and far red light, and both photoreceptors plays very important role. So next one is the photoperiodism. It's the same thing. Photoperiod, that is the 16 hours day and 8 hours dark period, it is necessary for the flowering in the Arabidopsis thaliana, because it is a qualitative long day plants. And pigments are also important, which plays very important role. Drought stress. Drought stress means water stress, right? So it is very important. आणि खूप ठिकाणी असं पाहिलं गेलेलं आहे की ज्या ठिकाणी ड्राउट कंडिशन आहे किंवा plant don't get the sufficient amount of the water, they flower earlier. So that point has been added here, that the drought stress is also important for the flower induction. Then the hormonal balance is also very important, so for the flowering.